Mr. Speaker, over the past 13 years, Jamaica has put its public finances on a sound footing. The amount of our national debt relative to the size of our economy has been cut more or less in half over that period. With the debt now standing at roughly 69% of our annual gross domestic product, we are getting close to the 60% of GDP target that is fixed in our law as a fiscal target that we must reach by March 2028. This is a great national achievement. And it is the result of continuity of fiscal policy across successive political administrations. Some may ask, how has this benefited our people? It has meant that money that used to be spent on interest payments can now be spent on other things. It has provided choices as to how to allocate the national budget, choices that were not available before. Nevertheless, the outcome of all the sacrifices made to achieve this triumph in debt reduction has been deeply disappointing. Our national wealth is stagnant, as our economy is hardly growing. In fact, our economy experienced negative growth in 2024 and was in a technical recession at the end of the last 2 quarters in December 2024. Indeed, the credit rating agency, Fitch, in its recent assessment of Jamaica, made the telling point, and I quote, "Jamaica's credit ratings remain constrained by deep structural weaknesses, including subdued growth potential owing to a high crime rate, low productivity, and weak demographics, and vulnerability to external shocks, including weather-related." Mr. Speaker, macroeconomic indicators do not always tell the full story. Jamaica has statistically low overall unemployment numbers at 3.5%. However, Jamaica still suffers from chronic unemployment, low wages, and unstable incomes. According to the World Bank, 50% of non-agricultural jobs are informal, with no benefits or security. So, despite being employed, many Jamaicans are still struggling and are essentially working poor. They are unable to withstand sickness or other unexpected events. Too many of our people are in this vulnerable position, despite being employed. Many Jamaicans are unable to set aside any savings for the future, even though they have a job. Miss Pearl does some selling from a stall downtown. The official statistics consider her to be employed, but her earnings are modest, and she finds it hard to make ends meet. Due to the unstable nature of much of the employment from which the statistics are derived, many workers are effectively locked out of the housing market. Lending institutions are unwilling to extend mortgages to individuals whose employment situation is precarious. As pointed out last Thursday by our spokesperson for finance, this is reflected in the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, report. It says that 55%, i.e. more than half of Jamaicans, are facing moderate to severe food insecurity. Our people cannot afford to buy enough nutritious food to live a healthy life. People in Jamaica are skipping meals, forced to buy cheaper, less nutritious food. This state of food insecurity, Mr. Speaker, is reflected in adverse health outcomes. We have an epidemic of diabetes, many call it sugar, hypertension, many call it pressure, and far too many people are getting strokes. Some depend on cash pot winnings to determine whether they can provide a meal for their families on a given day. If employment is increasing, but your economy is not growing, it means that productivity is falling. If employment is increasing, but national wealth is stagnant, it means that jobs are being created, but they are low-paying jobs that cannot sustain a decent quality of life. Mr. Speaker, you cannot use statistics to tell a struggling man that he is not struggling. You cannot use statistics to tell a hungry child that she is not hungry, or an underpaid worker that he or she is doing well in life. People know what the reality of their lives is. They know that the official statistics can't yam. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica has the second highest rate of brain drain in the world. The aspiration of most of our people is to migrate to other countries where there are better opportunities to step up in life. We struggle to keep our university graduates and other trained professionals here in Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, another area where the data confirm what we have been saying is in our trade deficit. We are not producing enough, either for our own use or to sell abroad. Jamaica has a massive chronic trade deficit. Imports of US $6.1 million annually, but exports of just $1.5 million US dollars in the first 10 months of 2024, that data is. This gap is mainly financed by remittances, money sent home by our family members in the diaspora who support their loved ones here at home. Now, even that is under some threat with all the global uncertainties. Jamaica cannot plan its future based on such a deep reliance on remittances, which we do not control. We need to execute a strategy to reduce this vulnerability. Our main imports are oil and gas, which in 2023 was at US $3.8 billion. And they remain our main sources of fuel for electricity and transportation. And also food to feed our people and our tourist visitors at $1.6 million US in 2023 is on that list. Mr. Speaker, we must replace imported fuels as much as possible by renewable energy sources. Like solar and hydro and wind that we are blessed with in abundance. Similarly, we must produce food here to rely less on imports from abroad. We need to grow the Jamaican economy so that everyone has the opportunity to earn a good life right here where we live. Mr. Speaker, after the Minister of Finance's presentation, the country really needs to be reminded that it was the last PNP administration which in 2014 passed the Financial Administration and Audit Amendment Act. It set the targets that now establish 60% of debt to GDP as something that we are required to meet by a prescribed date, and the rules and the formula in the fifth schedule to the Act that the government now uses to determine how much fiscal space they have. I chaired the Legislation Committee of Cabinet, which finalized the details of that Act, working with others, including the present Fiscal Commissioner, who was at that time a technocrat in the Ministry of Finance. It is that transformational legislative achievement that has guided the fiscal policy decisions that have resulted in Jamaica's remarkable performance in debt reduction over the past 12 years. Even former Minister of Finance Nigel Clark had to acknowledge the PNP's role in steadying the ship in his 2020 budget presentation. He said, moving forward in a direction of national unity, I want to take a moment to recognize the work done by the prior administration, in particular, former Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller and former Finance Minister Dr. Peter David Phillips in doggedly pursuing the extended fund facility and rallying Jamaicans around it.
That's right.
The historical record is clear. The crucial reforms and economic management that have created the long-term stability in Jamaica's finances began with the last PNP administration under Portia Simpson Miller with Dr. Peter Phillips as Finance Minister. They understood the historic nature of their assignment and they championed change. We acknowledge that the current government continued what we had started. Jamaica has benefited from continuity in this journey.
True.
But let no one forget, we did the heavy lifting. We did the heavy lifting to take Jamaica out of a deep debt crisis. And we set Jamaica on a sustainable fiscal path. And this was after the JLP government of 2007 to 2011 couldn't cross it and run left it. It was not in their DNA, right, Julian? On Thursday, our spokesperson for finance irrefutably established that Jamaica's tremendous achievement in public debt reduction is a PNP baby. We are proud of that achievement and that legacy, and we remain, most importantly, we remain fully committed to fiscal discipline. Mr. Speaker, we will not do anything that would jeopardize the sacrifices that have been made by the Jamaican people to get our country where we are. Amen. Mr. Speaker, the JLP government loves to refer to running with it. Why was that comment ever made 2 decades ago? The then finance minister was referring to the continuation of the construction of the East-West Highway from Mandela to Maypen, which the Jamaica Labour Party had opposed. So opposed to it were they that they disciplined the mayor of Spanish Town at the time, Dr. Raymond Notice, for attending the opening of that leg of the highway. But in what can only be called a supreme irony, they have extended the same highway to Williamsfield, and that same highway is now being sold on the market to raise money for this coming fiscal year's budget. Oh, what a tangled web. Oh, what a tangled web they weave when they practice to deceive. Mr. Speaker, what about the current situation? The budget for this fiscal year now ending, 2024-25, was funded by over 70 billion of non-tax revenues, which came from the sale of 12 years of future income. That meant that what is to be earned over 12 years from Jamaica's future revenues from the Norman Manley International Airport was sold, and sold so that that money could be spent now. How was the money used? To finance various recurrent expenses, a one-time so-called reverse income tax credit, 1 year of some other tax relief that is going to be an ongoing annual cost to the budget, and some other expenditures. None of these will have a lasting beneficial impact on the future of this country. Mr. Speaker, recurrent expenditures ought properly to be funded from revenues generated in the year in which those expenditures are incurred. Not by selling off future income and leaving the cupboard empty for years to come. Mr. Speaker, not one school, not one hospital, not one water reservoir, no other lasting national asset has been built with those funds. Nothing that will deliver solid benefits to the country throughout those 12 years when the income has been disposed of. And Mr. Speaker, when you add to that the $9 billion expected from the sale of the government's remaining shares in Trans-Jamaican Highway, the highway which we built, it looks, sounds and smells like running with it to me. And there is more of this planned for this coming fiscal year. The revenue estimates for 2025-26, the coming year, have $139.8 billion of non-tax revenues, including financial distributions of $66.2 billion. I inquired of the Ministry of Finance as to the composition of the $66.2 billion of financial distributions. And I was told that, and I quote, the major sources are the National Housing Trust and the monetization of contractual cash flows. Well, Mr. Speaker, we know that the government is still taking the $11.4 billion out of the National Housing Trust each year. And this is despite the current Prime Minister, when he was opposition leader, committing in 2013 to amend the law and ring-fence the funds for its primary purpose. Do you recall that, Mr. Prime Minister? Let me remind you of your words. In an All Angles interview in 2013, you were asked, is it your belief in principle that the funds of the National Housing Trust should be ring-fenced exclusively for the benefit of NHT contributors? And Mr. Prime Minister, you answered saying it should be ring-fenced to use for the objects and purposes of the legislation. Well, that never happened, and you're still taking it to fund the annual budget of the country. Mr. Speaker, if 11.4 billion of 66.2 billion is being taken from the NHT, then the other 54.8 billion must be from the so-called monetization of cash flows. I inquired further of the Ministry of Finance, and it has been confirmed that another large sale of future income is to take place in the coming year. However, despite my asking, no further details have been provided. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, this will be another run-with-it transaction, selling off future revenues to fund expenditures for this year's budget. In other words, further emptying the cupboard in the coming years with nothing lasting to show for it. This is not sound fiscal management. To the contrary, it is playing fast and loose with the future of the country. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica's economy needs to grow stronger and faster. When this government came to office 10 years ago, it quickly pronounced 5 in 4, 5% growth that would be achieved by the end of 4 years. You set up a ministry precisely named for achieving that, and you even had some economic ambassadors. Mr. Speaker, all this has been a colossal failure. Jamaica's annual growth rate from 2016 through 2019 was very sluggish, approximating just 1% per annum. We had the COVID hit, and then we had a short-lived post-recovery bounce after COVID. But the downward trajectory of growth has recommenced from the beginning of 2022. There was negative growth, as I've said, for the entire year of 2024, and we ended the year in a technical recession, there being 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. And I don't see why people are trying to deny that that is the case. I mean, it's just a technical definition and it's reality. The government blames the negative growth in 2024 on Hurricane Beryl, which caused approximately 2% of GDP in damage to the country, and some subsequent heavy rainfall. But the truth is that that really can't spin, Mr. Speaker, because several of our Caribbean neighbors, who in relative terms were hit even harder by Beryl, have been able to achieve economic growth of over 4% in 2024. The unacceptable situation is that Jamaica has lower growth rates than any other country in the Caribbean except Haiti. And Haiti has a unique set of challenges. So, after 9 years of this government, we have an economy stagnating like molasses, negative growth last year, a technical recession in the second half of the year, high cost of living, low standard of living, more people in low-paying jobs, brain drain like a runaway train, a chronic trade deficit, and the spending of future revenue that will leave the cupboard empty. The undeniable facts are that this government has mismanaged the economy and has failed to build on the strong growth, from the fiscal gains that we engineered when we were last in government. Jamaica cannot continue this way. Things have to change.